The AAA overlords are dying and the indie uprising is coming.
Terminator!
So,
Terminator 3, maybe.
Something like that. Hello, everyone. I'm Asch and I, D-Class Hero.
I'm Car Dreamer, that other D-Class guy.
Still nothing?
Nothing.
Okay. Well, if you're wondering what the heck we're talking about, that's kind of the point of this discussion video. Is it the golden age of indies, and are AAA companies pretty much coming to an end in terms of quality?
I don't think AAA companies are ever going to go anywhere, but they have definitely sunk in quality, and this is definitely a time in which, in a way, I feel indie games are going to keep the AAA ones afloat because...
It depends who buys up what and how they support it.
Exactly. I feel like right now is a very fluctuating market where indie guys can get out there and make their one game or two, but then they get bought up by the bigger companies. They don't get to stay independent. And then that's what's keeping the big guys afloat because they have acquired the little guy.
Which I kind of understand from a business point of view, because you're going to try and buy up any resource that's going to be, valuable to you in the future. Simple enough. That's economics. Okay, how do you keep yourself sustained? You get something that's valuable or has the potential to be valuable. But in terms of gaming, AAA companies are kind of just falling flat. Like the whole loot box BS, games coming half complete, not even being put out as a full game. A lot of companies are relying on nostalgia to the point where it's killing the nostalgia itself. There's a whole lot of mess right there. And then we have, indie games. What's one of your favorite indie games, and why do you like it?
How do you even pick?
No, I guess we should start off by, what do we classify as indie games?
Indie games are just basically anything not by a big...
Name company. Sega, Nintendo,
yeah,
Capcom.
Those don't count. Once Upon a Time, Telltale, indie game. And in that case, you have to definitely got to give props to Walking Dead, The Wolf Among Us. Those were great games.
And I think those played a big part in some of the starts of this stuff. Super Meat Boy. That's another really high skill cap game. I still die a lot in it. We don't talk about that though. Hyper Light Drifter, Shovel Knight.
Shovel Knight is a beautiful example. Spelunky.
88 Heroes.
Cuphead,
Momodora. There's a whole bunch of games out there that are indie games, and they either... Fez is another game.
Unraveled, Beyond Eyes.
Yep. Which we just did a Let's Play of, and watch that. It's only 2 videos, but beautiful game. Definitely give that a shot. And why do you think indie games are so successful, in your opinion?
Indie developers don't have to listen to bigwigs. Indie developers don't have to listen to not backers per se, but they don't have to listen to powers that be. They get a right to make something, and they're usually given free reign if it's a property, or it's all their own, and they can do whatever they want either way. So they have free reign to really go out and do something different and whatever, without the fear of backlash as much as a bigger company. Yeah.
And to that extent, I feel like a lot of AAA companies to this day have a mold for a type of game, whether it be a shooter, an RPG, or whatnot, that they follow. Whether it be a formula, a mold, or whatnot. And to that point, it's killing, essentially, the fun of it.
It really is. I mean, when you look at certain franchises who have... Even Telltale, as much as I loved every game they put out that I've played, there's
a mold. A formula.
Something there. Yeah, there's a mold, a formula. There's something there that they're getting to a point, they're pumping out enough games where you can make a start of an argument that they're taking away something from what they do.
Almost cookie cutter like.
Yes, but don't get me wrong. When you're consistently just about good, you can do it. But when you start, it's okay, nothing special. When you start getting into that over and over again, that's when you're going to have to be careful because you've done saturated the market.
And I think Telltale's is a good example because all their games are essentially point and click and time sensitive. Walking Dead, Guardians, Wolf Among Us, Batman. And the one thing I think is a big saving grace for them is the story they tell.
I will definitely argue that. Telltale has had some, not only really good story writers for a lot of their stuff, they're faithful to the source material in its essence, in its core, but they also are able to go their own direction and their own twist on things.
Without getting too far to the point where it's like, okay, this is a stretch.
Case in point, without revealing any spoilers for those who haven't played, the first Batman Telltale game, the way they handled Joker is totally different from anything I've seen in the comics, but it worked.
And mind you, he is one of the biggest comic book fans I know of. I get most of the comics I read from him. And with that being said,
user.
hey, I don't ask you for them, but you're like, hey, read this one. I'll read it.
Well, it's just...
I'm not wrong. You can't argue that.
No.
Exactly.
I just have that much pity for him that I try to make him a little bit cooler.
First off, that's a lie. Neither one of us are cool. Secondly...
That hurts. That hurts.
Secondly, we love comics.
Yes.
But point being, him being a big Batman and Superman fan, DC... in particular, actually, I would consider him an authority in terms of whether it's gone too far to the point that it can't be recognizable. And Joker is a phenomenal character in concept design and personality. And reason being is that he's done it in a way where you can go so many routes with him, but the minute you go just a smidge too far, it destroys the character in and of itself of what he is. He's recognizable to the point where he's almost unchangeable. Almost.
True.
They have changed him in the past before in comics, but Telltale's Batman's a good example, where it's believable.
I agree. Trying to think of,
I want to talk about a game, one of my personal favorites, is Hyper Light Drifter. And why this indie title stands out to me. The reason this game particularly stands out to me is because it's a game without words, because it's done through this little picture-esque cutscene-like functionality, where you'll get 3 panels of pictures from a character you see, and you kind of piece things together yourself. And the reason that's a good thing, in my opinion, is no two-person story will be the same, making it unique to every person who plays it. Now, in terms of the overall arcing story, it won't change, but their interpretation of the little things in it will, and I like that. Also, the story behind Hyper Light Drifter is really amazing, because the entire story is conflict, which is that conflict is this disease the main character has, and that's based off the game's creator, who has a heart condition. It's really neat.
Any game that's got based on somebody's experience, I always find a little extra intriguing.
Right? Beyond Ice is a good example.
Beyond Ice is a great example.
Because at the end of that game, in our Let's Play, we actually see a little tidbit explaining this as part of someone's experience in life. Or at least it's an homage to, at the very least.
Eternal Sonata even went that road, and I give him props for that.
Yeah.
But, there's other games... There's just so many good things that indie game developers have done, and they do. There's such a broad range of them.
And
whereas certain companies tend to stick to their formula. EA
Zelda for a long time.
Sports or shooters. I mean, no matter the franchise, Star Wars or not Battlefield, Call of Duty, whatever.
Yep.
It's just
surprisingly enough, not Blizzard. Think about it this way. They've done World of Warcraft and RPG, StarCraft, which is a resource management game, Overwatch, which is
Warcraft started that way.
True, but it changed.
True.
Overwatch, which is a first-person team-based shooter. They've been all over the place, but they somehow managed to keep their stuff fresh. I'll say that. But that's getting beyond the point of what I wanted to say originally. A lot of things involving indie games is that a lot of them go old school. A lot.
That is true, and in the day and age where we're all about nostalgia, that's a huge plus.
And negative.
And negative, because at the same time, I don't mind indie titles that want to do something different either.
Retro,
I don't necessarily need 15 million 16-bit style RPG-ish games. It's just...
Yeah.
I get it. Those were fun, but, 3D ones are good too.
I like the game Momodora because it's a side-scroller game that reminds me a lot of Bloodborne. Well, my favorite games from Software, and that was a dark, difficult game, fast-paced. The reason I like Momodora is because it has that same feel in a pixel-like state, But also has kind of like a side-scrolling Mega Man feel to it.
I don't know if I would have said Mega Man, maybe more Castlevania.
Alright, Castlevania, but side-scroller in that sense, there's like boss fights like that. Way.
True.
You find items, whatnot, fight, heal, blah, blah, blah. I enjoy it because I feel like a pixel game of this design can work with a darker tone. A game like Fez, which is, it literally turns the 8-bit style on its head because you literally turn the world around you in order to play the game. And a lot of things with indie games is a lot of innovation.
This is true.
Fez is a good example. Shovel Knight combined several different retro games into one.
Yes, Shovel Knight was a good one. I want to give special mention to Cuphead.
Yep.
Because Cuphead played on nostalgia in a totally different way
than what
we're used to. Because for the most part, every nostalgic game out there, the 8-bit, the 16-bit, is really appealing to
older gamers
like myself, Ash, and so forth. Cuphead appealed to a
different generation.
A generation that really didn't play video games.
Not at all. And it was more of an artistic sense in that way.
Exactly. Because it's a Contra-esque game through and through as far as its difficulty, gameplay.
Understatement.
Yes.
But it was more along the lines of, they didn't go retro gaming, they went retro
art
and cartoons. Like, they actually studied the art style from, like, early 1900s of cartooning just to make that game.
Yeah.
I believe in an article that the creators of Cuphead almost had to refinance their place of living in order to even complete the game. They went through a lot in order to get this done.
And it wasn't just a look. Mm-hmm. They literally used the same materials to do the art, the same color palettes, the same color equipment, same paint, same paper. I mean, they did everything and just scanned it in later.
Yep. Like, they did a lot of research and a lot of time and effort into this, and it's admirable, and I love that kind of thing. What's another game I can think of?
I like Bastion. I think that took a nice little... It's almost Zelda-esque, but it took its own twist on it as far as the narration.
The narration was the best part.
Yes.
Let's be honest.
It was.
But the world did form before you. I like that. Bastion was a different kind of game. And that's pretty much the word you can use for any indie game. It's different, but also still kind of the same.
This is true. Yeah. And Plants vs. Zombies, the very first one, start as an indie title, and look at that. Now,
it blew up.
EA bought it and kind of...
Now we got Garden Warfare, which I'm not... Personally, I'm not a big fan of. My little brother likes it.
I thought it was decent.
Yeah.
I didn't play the second one, even though I have it.
Right. FNAF. How can we not mention FNAF? Five Nights at Freddy's.
I'm not even sure how... Oh. I was like... Because I don't know what FNAF is.
It's the abbreviation of Five Nights at Freddy's.
I've never even played. I've never seen it. I know people talk about it in YouTube videos.
You disappoint me.
It's not the first time.
You're not wrong. But everyone, I assume a majority of you have heard of FNAF, Five Nights at Freddy's, or even one of its many spin-offs. But, survival horror game. You're a security guard, pizza joint, evil, ghost-possessed animatronics trying to kill you. And it's a scary game. It is a great survival horror game. You're just trying to make it past 5 nights without getting killed. And it's just done in a strange way, where everything is just kind of like, okay, it's a texture model for like what you're viewing at. Except the animatronics, which are basically the only things that actually have a character model assigned in the game itself. And it's done well. It's definitely a different kind of horror game.
I know there's other ones on that top. Friday the 13th is actually the newer one. Is done by an indie company. Did pretty decent. Yeah, they took some flack, but they did pretty decent with it.
And that's the thing, when you can try and convert a movie into a game, or a game into a movie, it's kind of like one of those things, it's hit or miss. Oftentimes miss.
88 Heroes took a really cool... just platform formula and turned it on its head, spun it around, and slapped the blindfold on you.
I did like the fact that you're viewing everything from the villain's screen.
Yes.
I do like that a lot. Another game I like is Tiny Rogues or something like that. It's pretty much a game... Rogue Legacy, there it is. I like that game a lot. Pretty much, your family is cursed, and it's this interesting mechanic of you're going to, like, say, this castle where you gotta find... You defeat the 4 or 5 bosses, find the treasure at the end, and then you can all be either set free or be rich. It's something like that. I haven't beat the game because it is just a long game. every time you die, the next family member in your bloodline takes your place. And the cool thing about the game is every character is different. They all kind of look visually the same, aside from maybe a few little tweaks here and there, and it's all pixel-esque. But, you can have one character that can, he kills an enemy, they turn to food, or your character doesn't set off floor traps. Your character can walk on spikes. Your character gets extra gold. Your character can throw, like an anchor that goes in an arc, or, shoot darts ahead. You have a character that can stop time. There's tons of different things that affect your character, and some good, some bad. There's a skill tree involved that allows you to upgrade certain units. It's really fun, really neat. The boss battles are tough, and I consider that a familiar game, but the difference being the fact that it's the same bloodline, but everyone's still different.
Now, this isn't meant to be just a whole video about what our favorite indie games is.
No, it's not.
About, is this the golden age? And I think
that's
what we're trying to tell you is that there's so much variety out there with the indie titles that AAA's just aren't giving you.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you've got EA, which is really sports and shooters. You got Activision, which is really just, feels like shooters or whatever.
Yeah.
Square is role players.
Yep.
Capcom is their fighters and
horror
Dead
games.
Rising, and they stick to the big names that people know and keep buying, which is fine.
I'm not gonna lie, and I'm gonna catch flack for this, and I really don't care. Nothing against anyone who likes these games. I am not a big Street Fighter fan. They're all right. They're a good thing for killing time. I don't need a new Street Fighter game every year. I don't. I'd much rather have like either Mega Man Legends 3. First off, let me start off with that. Mega Man 0. I would go back to Miss Tron Bond's Misadventures. A lot of Mega Man stuff I'm mentioning here, but like Okami, which did get an HD remake recently, which I like a lot.
I would like to see the sequel get ported to a home console.
Mm-hmm. Let's see. A lot of older games that they have are like, say, Onimusha. One of their Dead titles that was a really great series. Is an RPG set in feudal Japan during the Demon Age. Super cool. Stuff like that. Like, I don't need a new Street Fighter every year, is my point. And I feel like that's a lot of, game companies nowadays. They're just riding games to the grave.
Assassin's Creed for Ubisoft.
Yeah, and for the most part, I find some enjoyment from the Assassin's Creed games. Mostly the multiplayer. Personally. Story's alright. But I believe you can only tell the same story only so many times.
Right.
It's like, okay, the Templars are doing something. How do I stop them? Or I need this mystical item for whatever. It's just like, there's a point where you can only use the same story base so many times. And yet somehow Mario stays untouched. I still don't quite understand that.
That's just Nintendo for you.
There's something weird with Nintendo and their titles that just makes them near untouchable. Near.
I think the other reason why indie games right now have such a allure is because we are in a world right now where they want the in-your-face fast action, Halo's, Gears of War, God of War, these type of things, and indie games for the longest time slid under the radar.
Yep.
But with the latest
iterations,
controversies right now between Bungie, EA, and all these other games that are just pissing off all the fan base because they got greedy.
Games, loot boxes, all this stuff. And we've mentioned this before in microtransactions and in AAA companies' names, how much weight they carry. But, that's just some things you have to consider.
But with all that, people are sick of it.
Exactly.
So now they're turning to, where else can they go to have their video game fun? And
I don't have to pay extra. I don't need to do microtransactions, or I actually get a complete game.
And indie games are where you go, and you find some great fun games that some of them were pretty simplistic in concept but really utilized what they did well, made a great complex game or what have you, and it's something that's cheap, it's something that gives you some replay value, it gives people something to explore they may not have otherwise, and it allows for twitching, streaming on other forums. And it opens up possibilities, bringing people together the way AAA titles don't always do. I mean, how many times can you watch somebody play Destiny, especially Destiny 2? How many times can you watch somebody play the same old Call of Duty matches? Sooner or later they blur together for me. I mean, some people. I'm not knocking the people into it, but
It comes down to this for me. It depends on the personality involved. That's the biggest
that
contributing
okay,
factor, in my
that true.
opinion.
But
Like, I'm pretty sure some of the people who watch this video are either here for our personalities and how quirky we are, or they're here for the actual discussion where it's an interesting topic that they want to get involved in.
well,
That's how I see it in terms of this
yes.
video as an example. Now, that's not to say that we aren't actually entertaining. I am, he isn't. I'm kidding. But it goes back to that fact of how many times can you play the same thing over again or watch the same video over again of the same thing before getting just sick of it.
Right, and indie games, they're indie. There isn't a huge catalog from any one indie developer, so you're always going on to something different, whereas you know what you're going to get out of every Call of Duty experience, just about. The story might be a little different, but it's the same game, let's be honest. Assassin's Creed, same type of thing. And so indies always give you something new and exciting to look forward to. Some of them fall flat, some of them really rise, some of them are just decent. I mean, there's just, you never know, and that's the beauty of an indie game.
And it could be the story, the gameplay, the new mechanic that they put in you never thought of someone doing. Fez's world-moving mechanic. Shovel Knight combining several different retro-style games into one. Let's see. Hyperlight Drifter, a world with a game without words. Beyond Eyes, a game all about a blind girl's experience traversing the world. You know, these just some examples. FNAF, stationary, trying to survive a night by, messing with some of the controls of the pizza joints, vents and stuff. It's all interesting mechanics. They all bring a different kind of twist to a game that you might or may not be familiar with. And for one reason or another, a lot of AAA companies have gotten away from that. Innovation is what I'm trying to really just jab at, is what I'm saying.
It's true, and it's not that you can't fault them, because you understand to an extent, hey, this is what sold really well, this is what people are wanting, keep buying, give it to them. They want to play it safe to a certain extent because that's what they have on record that sold. But at the same time, you get so big, like Call of Duty, there's only so much they can change it, because let's look at Infinite Warfare.
The minute they change anything too drastically,
people
backlash.
Yeah, it's huge backlash.
And that's a big drawback of being a large company, in my opinion, because they're so set in what they can actually put out that they can't put out anything new. Unless they do something that's a completely new title, even though it could work great for such game A or B. Vanquish was a fun game for PlayStation 3. And that had a time mechanic where if you slid across the floor, you'd slow down time and you could move around normally. It was a cool game. Super short. Wish it was longer. But, it's like innovations like that.
I agree. I bought my girlfriend one called Hue for like $3.
Is that the one about the colors?
Yes. And
that one's pretty neat.
I watched her play it, and she really likes it. I'm really tempted to play it. I should have gotten it for me but I didn't have the money at the time. I mean, there's just so many great games. Limbo.
That game is creepy.
It is. And I would be interested, why... It would just be interesting to see a AAA company come along and say,
look, we're trying to...
This is the things that we're going to do.
Yeah.
Kind of just buy up some of these indie studios, but not for the sense of
owning them.
Like EA, but go, okay, I want you to do your thing, I want you to do your thing, I want you to do your thing. And just,
we'll give you the money you need.
Yes. Blizzard does that. You're used to do that. Blizzard used to be publishers for other companies. The two I can think of, some of the... I think they used to be publishers for Sunsoft when they were around.
Yeah. Didn't they go under, or were they bought out?
I'm not sure what happened to Sunsoft, but they made, The Death and Return of Superman for the Super Nintendo. They made...
Blizzard was part of that, and that was an old game.
Justice League Task Force, the first DC Comics fighting game they did.
We played that one.
Yes.
That was...
We'll get that video up.
Eventually.
Someday.
It's not as... It's one of those games that's nostalgic, but it's also like, okay, my eyes kind of hurt.
I didn't think it was bad. I liked it. But anyway.
I would like to see AAA developers support indie developers by taking them under the wing, but letting them do their own thing. That's really what I want. I feel like if you take the guys from Cuphead, let them do their thing, but give them the funds they need to make what they need, something great, even better, possibly even better than Cuphead could come out.
So here's an interesting example of it's by definition an indie game, but had a AAA backing and it fell in the middle somewhere. Kingdoms of Amalur.
That one of those was the black sheep of the family, wasn't it?
It was a good.
That game had a fun beat 'em up system.
It had a great combat system. The world was very attractive to look at. I really liked it.
It had World of Warcraft.
Good crafting. It did. The story was okay. Wasn't the best, but they had R.A. Salvatore writing most of it, which is always. I mean, that's a good thing. He's big with the Forgotten Realms stuff. So they just kind of overdid it. So you know, an indie title can go too far as well.
There's nothing wrong with being ambitious. There's nothing wrong with that. And I feel like that kind of got the better of them in that situation.
It did. That's something that probably should have stepped back and go, okay,
let's take a
what can be the main game and what might be more beneficiary as a DLC.
Now, not to say that some indie games aren't deserving of DLC. Some I would like to see have some DLC for it, like Hyper Light Drifter, like a second story arc. Would love to have, like, you know, the aftermath of what happens after you beat that game. Cuphead. You know, he beats the devil. What's next? Like, is he come back for revenge, or is he, like, just down for good? You know, stuff like that. Like, I'm not faulting AAA companies for staying within their, you know, formulas or molds. I'm not doing that at all. I can understand why. And that's mainly because, like, they know they can make some kind of profit off that. And, you know, as a large company, that's kind of what their main focus is, to make a profit. Because they gotta pay their employees, they gotta, you know, pay the people who have stocks. But, you know, there's a point where you can only do the same thing so many times before it becomes insanity. And that's kind of my point when it comes to, like, Call of Duty, Battlefield, all that stuff. It's all the same thing after a point. And you can only do so much of story to save a game that's been, you know, in the mold so much it became a mold itself. I feel like this is the golden age of indies because they are just bringing a fresh twist to either a new kind of game, an older style game, or just throwing it out the window and just like, hey, we're doing this. Now we get Cuphead, which is a complete cartoon game. It is the golden age of indies, in my opinion, because it's not all the fault of the company of AAA companies, but you know there's a lot of controversy going on.
Yeah, there is. I agree. I do think this is a golden age, and it helps that indie companies are actually taking the time to make good games.
That's kind of the big thing here with this channel. I more often enough love to play Destiny, but I've fallen out of that love because of all the stuff that's going on with Destiny 2.
I had a love-hate with it, and now I just hate.
See? Like I said, I'm not a big Street Fighter fan, but you know, if they did something different, maybe I'd get more into it. Who knows? Sonic Generations. I won't point this one out. That's a game coming from a mold, but they broke the mold by making it like, okay, classic Sonic in a 3D twist versus new Sonic, or tagging it along with new Sonic. And that brought back a lot of fan base to it. As an example of like how the mold can still be there, but adding a different kind of twist to it can be a good thing. So, any final words or anything else you want to add in?
No, I don't think there's really much to add because it's not it's only a question you can answer with an opinion. But
it is.
I love everybody leave their comments down below. Tell us what some of your favorite indie games are, which are some you've always wanted to try and haven't had a chance to.
Tell us what is this the golden age indies for you? Do you believe it's still a good age for AAA games? Do you feel there's some developers that deserve a second chance over others? You know, stuff like that.
Yep.
So, with that being said, I'm Asch and I D-Class Hero signing out.
I'm Car Dreamer, that other D-Class person.
We gotta get you a title.
It's coming. Weird. There's a plan, a maniacal plot to it all.
That's a little evil right there, buddy. But anyway, we'll catch you in the next one, guys.
See ya.